It's hard not to be moved by the tragic life story of actress Gene Tierney. Although she was blessed with beauty and talent and managed to rise to fame at an early age, a series of very unlucky events ultimately brought her to a point in which she contemplated taking her own life. Keep watching to learn about her heartbreaking experience in Tinseltown. Throughout the video, we'll share with you some rare photos of Tierney that show a much sadder story than you'd expect from a Hollywood megastar. So stay tuned, as Facts Verse presents Rare Photos of Gene Tierney Show a Much Sadder Story. From a life of privilege to misery. Tierney was the daughter of a very successful insurance broker. She grew up in a privileged household. By the time she was in her late teens, she was already quite a looker and determined to pursue acting, first getting her start in Broadway productions. In time, Tierney was spotted by Hollywood mogul Darryl Zanuck, who extended her a contract with 20th Century Fox. When she was only 20, Tierney appeared in her first big-screen role in Fritz Lang's The Return of Frank James, which hit theaters in 1940. In 1943, she co-starred alongside Don Amici in the Ernst Lubitsch film Heaven Can Wait. A year later, Gene appeared in the role in which she'd become best known. In Otto Preminger's Laura, Gene played a beautiful young career woman who astonishingly reappears after she was apparently murdered. To this day, the film is considered to be one of the greatest mysteries made. In 1945, Tierney earned her first and only Oscar nomination for her performance in Leave Her to Heaven. In that movie, she portrayed a possessive socialite with deviously murderous tendencies. For the next several years, Tierney continued appearing in several critically acclaimed films. But behind the scenes, her turbulent personal life was beginning to take a toll on her work. In 1941, she married Playboy designer Oleg Cassini. The couple's relationship was challenging, to say the least, and was more tumultuous than passionate. Tierney and Cassini got divorced in 1948, but not long after they got back together. Not surprisingly, it didn't take long for their relationship to wind back up on the rocks, and in 1952, they split for good. While her love life was difficult, so was Gene's health. While she was pregnant with her first child, she contracted rubella from one of her fans. When little Daria Cassini was born in 1943, she was both deaf and extensively mentally disabled. Before going their separate ways, Tierney and Cassini had a second daughter, Christina, in 1948. When their marriage collapsed, Gene was put over the edge. She was so filled with grief that she withdrew from the cast of the 1953 film Mogambo. That role went instead to Grace Kelly. By the time she appeared opposite Humphrey Bogart in The Left Hand of God in 1955, Tierney's fragile emotional state made it challenging for her to recall her lines. Bogart tried his best to lend her a hand on set, but in private, he counseled her to seek professional help. Unfortunately, she sought out the wrong sort of help. Back in the day, the go-to treatment for mental adversities was electric shock therapy. Sadly, after submitting to several rounds of shock treatment, Tierney was left with a severely impaired memory. This video is sponsored by Speakly. Speakly is the best way to learn a new language. With just 30 minutes of daily learning practice, you can go from zero to solid speaking skills in only 3 to 4 months. Speakly has researched and developed a unique method of teaching languages that helps you learn a language up to 5 times faster than what you're accustomed to. The Speakly method is focused on words and sentences that you'll need in real-life situations, so you don't waste your time learning things that you don't actually need. Speakly is packed full of speaking, writing, and listening exercises, so you'll never get bored with studying the language of your choice. You'll even find music recommendations in the language that you're learning. If you're ready to learn a new language, Speakly has everything you need to start speaking it as quickly as possible. The app is available on web and mobile, including both iOS and Android. Go to speakly.app.link/Speakly or click the link below to download the app and get a 7-day free trial as well as a 60% discount when you join the annual subscription. In 1957, Tierney reached her lowest point when she had to be talked down off a ledge at her mother's apartment building on the 14th floor. She then spent a rather lengthy stay at the Menninger Clinic in Kansas. Her mental health stabilized in the early 60s. At that point, she staged a brief comeback, but not long after, she retired from films altogether. In 1969, Tierney married oil tycoon W. Howard Lee. Lee had previously been married to Hedy Lamarr. After tying the knot, Tierney and Lee moved to Texas. Tierney outlived her second husband by more than a decade before dying of emphysema in 1991. In another unfortunate turn of events, it was discovered smoking cigarettes is what caused her to develop emphysema. She had only picked up the habit to make her on-screen voice sound a bit more nuanced. Before we tell you more, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. She had an affair with JFK. In 1946, Gene Tierney was still one of the hottest stars in Hollywood thanks to her memorable performance in Otto Preminger's Laura. Her next film role was in Joseph Mankiewicz's Dragonwyck. At one point during production, Mankiewicz instructed her to turn closely and look into the camera. When Tierney followed the director's instructions, she found herself staring into what she later described as the most perfect blue eyes she'd ever seen on a man. The gentleman in question was standing close to the camera wearing a Navy lieutenant's uniform. While gazing into his eyes, he smiled at her. According to her 1978 autobiography, Self-Portrait, Tierney's reaction was something straight out of a romance novel. To her, it was love at first sight, but when the scene was over, she stepped forward to meet the man who had just swooned her. She realized he was none other than John F. Kennedy. At the time, Tierney was still married to Oleg Cassini, but their marriage had been on the outs for quite some time already. They were already in the middle of divorce proceedings. Later that evening, Tierney wrote a heartfelt letter to her sister Pat. She told her she wanted for her to meet this handsome young man from Boston and speculated about who was meant to fall in love with him, she or her sister. Tierney and JFK met again at the home of professional skater Sonia Henney. Tierney had come to the get-together with a date, but Kennedy promptly dispatched that unfortunate guy. He took Tierney to an empty room of the house where they proceeded to share an intimate dance. At one point, he reportedly told her he could dance with her for the rest of his life. Tierney decided right then it would be easy for her to fall for him. Kennedy asked Tierney many questions about her work. In the process, he revealed just how well he was already familiar with the topic. John's father had previously invested in the movies and had an eye for some of the biggest actresses of his time, including Gloria Swanson and Marion Davies. While sharing a meal together, John and Gene realized they had something else in common. Both had family members who were mentally underdeveloped. Tierney had her daughter Daria, while Kennedy had his sister Rosemary. Kennedy told her all about how Rosemary was born mentally challenged and how his family continued to love and support her. The topic was fairly awkward for him to discuss, but it allowed Kennedy to connect with Tierney in a way that few could. They dated for the better part of the next year, but eventually their relationship ended when Kennedy told her he couldn't marry her due to his political ambitions. It's worth noting the Tierney family didn't approve of their romance, seeing as how they were Republicans and Episcopalians while Kennedy was a Democrat and Catholic. In 1960, Gene sent John a note congratulating him on his victory in the presidential election. She went on to briefly date Kirk Douglas before striking up a romance with Prince Ali Khan while filming 1953's Personal Affairs in Europe. Their marriage plans were halted, however, when the prince's father, Aga Khan III, expressed fierce opposition. Now it's time to hear from you. Did you know Gene Tierney dated JFK for almost a year? Let us know in the comment section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.